Mayor Ted Wheeler, along with other city leaders, speaking now at City Hall. Let's take a look.
Oh, many of you had a long night, like many of us. I'm Lieutenant Tina Jones, Public Information Officer for the Portland Police Bureau. We are here today to talk about the unprecedented events that happened in our city last night. We want to start out by providing some remarks about what happened last night. We've got a list of speakers, and I'll go through that. We'll have some time for some questions, and then we would invite media to come with us as we take a brief tour and survey of the city downtown. I would like to correct one small thing that I learned after I sent the press release out. I learned that we actually have 2 officers who sustained minor injury and 1 criminalist. So that is a correction from that. So I'd like that reflected, please. Our speakers today will be as follows. Mayor Ted Wheeler, Commissioner Joanne Hardesty, Portland Police Bureau Acting Chief Chris Davis, Portland Fire and Rescue Chief Sarah Boone, Multnomah County Sheriff Mike Reese, Senior Deputy District Attorney Nathan Vasquez, Pastor Matt Hennessy, Pastor Edie Mondane, and then after that we will take some questions. So first, I would like to introduce Mayor Ted Wheeler.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. I want to start off by acknowledging that this has been an incredibly difficult and painful week for this country. And I also want to acknowledge that I haven't quite got the words right yet to express exactly how I feel and what I'm thinking as I rode through our city this morning. I feel conflicted in many ways, and in the conversations I've had throughout the night and the early morning hours with many of you, you feel that conflict as I do. There was a pain that erupted into violence in our city last night. Many are waking up now, all across the country, not just here in Portland, but all across the country, and seeing their cities burned, looted, and torn apart. That's shocking. That's not something we're familiar with here in Portland, not the scale of the damage that I saw coming down through the center of the city this morning. And it's not something that other cities are necessarily familiar with. But let's be clear. What happened last night in Portland and across the country did not happen in a vacuum. I don't condone what happened in Portland last night, and you all know that about me. I have said on so many occasions from this podium and other podiums from which I've spoken that I do not believe that violence or vandalism is the means to a political end, and I still believe that this morning. I don't condone what happened in Portland last night, and I do not tolerate it. But there's more. And here's the important part of what is a deeply moral conflict. This isn't just about damage or graffiti or fires or broken storefronts or lost product. That's not really what this is about. That's what people are seeing, and that's what's being reported on this morning. But we have to honestly acknowledge that yesterday's events boiled over into anger and frustration and rage all across this great nation. We need to take a long look in the mirror and be truthful about what we see in ourselves and in our nation's institutions of power, including right here in Portland, Oregon, where I am very privileged to serve as your mayor. People of color, especially black men, have fought for generations to exercise their God-given rights and to be valued as equals amongst men. Yet time and time again, they are reminded that the very institutions that are supposed to protect those rights and support the people of this nation instead fail them and deny them their basic rights, and all too often, even their very lives. That's not the America that I know. That's not the America that I love. That's not what so many people gave so much for over many generations. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, many activists all across the United States and all around the globe. And the murder of George Floyd underscored the stark reality of the day-to-day existence of being black in America and how far we have yet to go. And it's that reality, the reality of how far we have yet to go, to realize Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community. It's from that deep well of frustration and anger and disappointment that yesterday's actions arose from. Yes, there was a riot in Portland, Oregon last night. I declared it as such. And that is not something that we can tolerate. But again, by the same token, this cannot be a conversation just about damage or goods or services. I want to remind you how yesterday started. It started with powerful and peaceful vigils and demonstrations, calling out and speaking truth to the murder of George Floyd and so many other black men and women in our country over so many years. And those vigils repeatedly called for justice on one hand and accountability on the other. And not just from police officers, but from all of us in this society who have the privilege of power and leadership and the ability to change direction when we need to change direction. They called on all of us to see the humanity in each other and to honor the fullness of the lives of George Floyd and other black people who've been needlessly killed. This cannot stand. There must be meaningful and lasting change to racist institutions that continue to deeply wound the black community. Any injustice in this nation is an injustice to the people here in our community. And that's why you saw such widespread action yesterday. There was no community in this country that could escape the reality. In conclusion, I wanted to say this. I see the deep wounds all around us. I see those wounds. And I see and I acknowledge the systematic racism that has destroyed countless black families in our community and in our nation. I see the deep pain, further exacerbated by a pandemic that has already destroyed so many people's hopes and dreams and loved ones. I feel it deeply, and I stand side by side with other black leaders, our city leaders, our public servants, you, to continue doing everything that we can to heal and to reform. So this morning, as we pick up the broken glass, the question is on all of our lips. Whether it's black men in Portland who feel this dawning realization that the path towards true justice is longer than they could have imagined, to the shop owners and operators who wake up this morning to a new economic reality. Things were already nearly impossible before the COVID's economic impacts took hold, and now for many of them, it's going to be even harder. I cannot condone last night's violence. I cannot stand by and watch our city be destroyed. I cannot stand by and watch buildings be set aflame while people are still in them. And I won't. I will not tolerate that, and I will not condone that. But nor will I stand silent as men like George Floyd are murdered by the very institutions that are supposed to protect them and serve them and our communities at large. Both of these things can be true simultaneously. And this morning, that is how I am thinking about how to resolve the deep sense of moral conflict that I feel this morning. We need to heal as a city, and we need to heal as a country. This is a tipping point, make no mistake about it. You know it's true. This is a national reckoning. We have to choose which path we want to follow. But we cannot begin the healing process if we continue to wound each other. So, enough of the violence. We must take this opportunity to overcome whatever differences divide us as a society so that we can move forward together. And as your mayor, I will redouble my efforts. I will do whatever it takes to close that divide so that we can move forward together, so that the next generation, including my daughter and your children, can grow up in a very different society, one that Dr. King called the beloved community. Portland, we can get there, and we can show others how to get there. We can do this, and we're going to do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Next, I would like to introduce Commissioner Joanne Hardesty.
I appreciate you all being here today, but I first want to start with my appreciation for Mayor Wheeler. All of us, when we're facing losing a parent, need to really be focused on what's best to care for our parent. And it is unfortunate that he had to come back to the mess that happened last night. And so I just want to appreciate the fact that if I had been him, I would have stayed with my family and trust that the rest of us would have had his back. So I just really appreciate that. Let me say that Mayor Wheeler, yesterday started off as a day of reflection. It started off as a day of truth. It started as a day of acknowledging for too long black bodies have been disposable in the United States of America. There are many, many, many activities that took place that were peaceful, that were clear, that were direct. I'm going to divert from the mayor a little because I believe that there was a small group of people who came out last night with every intention of tearing stuff up, and they were going to tear it up no matter how many of them there were. I saw remarkable courage that we've seen over and over and over again by people who are continually damaged by their government. But I want to be crystal clear. What happened last night had nothing to do with Black America. It was not about standing up for Black people's rights. It was not about acknowledging the death and harm that has been taking place. It was merely a small group of people who decided that here's a great opportunity for us to steal stuff and break stuff. I want those people prosecuted. I want them found. I will help go through the video if need be to make sure that anybody that we can identify, that we prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. This city council, your city council, has been working night and day since the pandemic begun to try to help this community deal with the health crisis that we're in, knowing that Black and brown people die at astronomical rates from COVID-19. That's where we've put our energy. That's where we've put our strength. And then for some small group of individuals to decide, at the moment we're about to open back up again for business, let's just bust up all the businesses and steal all the stuff. That is inexcusable. Our community, all of us, will suffer long term because of that selfishness. I want to talk to the people, though, who understand protest, understand how to speak truth to power, understand the difference between right and wrong. I'm talking to you now. It is imperative that you are not silent. Silence is acceptance, and I will not accept that we need justice for Black people at the expense of tearing up our community. We can do both. We can get justice for Black people, but we don't have to destroy our community to do it. We at the City Council have been trying to figure out, with all the tens of thousands of people unemployed in Portland, what are we going to do? How can we help them? And thanks to some stupidity last night, we can add 10,000 or more people to the unemployment list. Not the city I want to live in. Not the kind of activity I would stand behind, ever. I've always been for nonviolent, direct action. And I will leave you with this quote. Since this is the Dr. King quote day, I will not remember the words of my enemy, but the silence of my friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Next, I would like to introduce Acting Chief Chris Davis.
Well, good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Chris Davis with the Portland Police Bureau. Last night will go down as one of the worst nights in the city of Portland's history. This evening began with a peaceful gathering in Peninsula Park, which turned into a march with several hundred people participating. During the march, some of the demonstrators started to engage in criminal activity on the way down Martin Luther King Boulevard, breaking windows and causing damages to businesses along the way. At one point in the march, there was a person in a vehicle who we believe may have been shot by a demonstrator. This person suffered a graze wound and has been treated and released. And we are actively investigating this incident. Based upon the criminal activity and violent acts that were occurring that we started to see, we were concerned about children who were still in the crowd and started to notify people to leave with their children. When several hundred demonstrators arrived downtown, the Multnomah County Justice Center was attacked. Windows were broken, a fire was set inside while there were people working in the building, as well as adults in custody. This put lives at risk and began a series of escalating attacks on businesses throughout downtown Portland. These violent and criminal actions being committed left us with no other option besides using force to disperse what had become an unlawful assembly and eventually a riot. Members of the crowd proceeded to target other locations, break windows, and cause further damage. We requested mutual aid to assist us with taking emergency police calls citywide. We sincerely appreciate our partners with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, the Port of Portland Police Department, the Gresham Police Department, and the Washington County Sheriff's Office for their assistance during this critical incident. We know what sparked the original demonstration, and we provided space for those who needed to express grief, and that was the right thing to do. Now, we'll have business owners, public employees, and community members who will be traumatized by the reckless and destructive acts that we witnessed last night. The mass destruction we saw last night in our city is unacceptable. Anger at the police is one thing, we're used to that, but destroying our city is another. We know our community as a whole does not condone mass destruction, and in the coming days we'll be increasing our police presence, not to target anyone, but just to help provide that sense of security that we all have a right to in our community. We'll be leaning on our outside agency and other city government partners, and we'll be working with our community to restore safety, and we'll be doing everything within our lawful authority to identify those responsible for this destruction and make arrests so that our criminal justice system can hold them accountable. We will need our community's help. The investigations into those who participated in arson, riot, attempted murder, and other serious criminal charges has begun. We will do everything we can to identify and hold accountable those responsible for these and other crimes, and we ask our community to come forward with tips. Public safety is a shared responsibility. I want to be very clear. We condemn what we saw in our city last night. This behavior is completely contrary to our values as Portlanders, and we will not tolerate it. I want to sincerely thank the men and women of the Portland Police Bureau, both our sworn officers and our professional staff, for their bravery and their selfless service last night in the face of incredible danger and violence. I also want to thank our partners in the Portland Fire Bureau who rushed into harm's way with our officers to put out fires. Further, I want to again thank our outside agency partners who came to our aid yet again when the chips were down. Finally, I want to thank the overwhelming majority of Portlanders whom we know would never participate in such wanton and reckless destruction. We know we have your support, and we're here for you. Thank you.